Hi, it's Richard here from Intelligent Advisor IT Consulting with another in our series about the example projects. This week we're looking at product recommendation. Product recommendation is a very interesting project for a number of reasons. Let's work through the different learning opportunities that it provides. Before we go any further, of course, you already know that the example projects can be found from the example project button in the project tab, and we can see that the product recommendation scenario is retail. We're selling you something, and typically when you buy something because it has features you're interested in. In this case, maybe you're buying a camera and you're interested in certain features, so the retailer is going to recommend some cameras based on those features. What does that mean from an Oracle Intelligent Advisor perspective? Well, it means that you're going to look at relationships, how to collect data about your requirements and leverage those in relationship terms. We'll also look at how to display that information in an interesting way. In terms of functionality, this project was designed originally to showcase a web service connector. So if you've never come across a connected project, this will be an interesting learning experience. You can use it without the connector, although if you want to go the full distance, you can, of course, download the demonstration web service connector and basically build out the entire scenario if you wish. This project also includes a lot of other related information when you look at the scenario of a retailer. So you can generate an order form, and we have an interview which displays lots of dynamic elements based on your recommendations. Anyway, let's dig into this project. I don't normally start this way, but I'm going to start with the data tab. So if you've never ever seen a connected project before, this is what it looks like. You'll notice that the entities on the left-hand side have an item in brackets just after them representing the connected element, meaning that in an external application somewhere or in a database somewhere, there's an underlying object that maps to this. So for example, you have an entity here called the product, which is mapped to an object called a camera in some external application. If I click the mapping settings, I don't have the web service built out, so I'm just going to use this as a review. I can see that I'm connected to the camera service, that I load the product catalog, and I create a new customer request. That's the basic principle of this project. As I said before, if you don't have the actual connection, it doesn't matter. You can still use this project, as we'll see in just a moment. And we can see that depending on the context, different attributes have been mapped in, or let's see if I can find one, mapped out. So in a real-life scenario, data can either be brought in from the connected application or sent back to the connected application, or both in this case. You could see that it's only mapped out. You'll notice that the application tells us that this particular piece of data is required. So if I ever go into input or output mapping screens and take a look at some of these, you'll see that they're marked with a little star. So these are the requirements of the external application. The external application needs this information in order to be able to complete the scenario we're building. So now that we've understood that a connected application is, in theory, going to provide data for mapping in or mapping out, what else do we need to know? Well, it doesn't stop you using the project, because obviously you may not have the application available to you, and we'll talk about how to use the project without that in just a moment. We'll also take a good look at the products, because when we look at the product, you'll notice that there is a reference relationship. So you'll notice this relationship is marked as the containment relationship. That's the relationship that gets created whenever you create an entity in a hierarchy. This one, however, specifically the customer's chosen products, is a reference relationship. What's a reference relationship? It means a relationship that has a business meaning that is purely for business purposes rather than a relationship which is for structural purposes. So somebody had to create this relationship, and it's going to represent the idea that the customer will select one or more products, one or more cameras based on their requirement. There are a couple of other entities, the customer's phone number and the phone number type. Phone number type is going to be things like cell phone, home phone, office phone, and the customer's phone number is going to be mapped out. So the external application needs to know what the customer's phone number is and what type of phone number it is. When we look at the application itself, at the project itself, we'll see that we have an order form, which is a standard RTF-based form, which you can generate at the end of the interview. And the interview itself is made up of a couple of screens. Let's go back to the very beginning. You'll notice there's some warning messages on here. This basically tells you that if you're not using the connector, then you might need to do a little more work. And we'll show you that it provides, in the zip file, you get an XDS file which you can load into the debugger to simulate having the connector, which in a sense lets you play with it as if you did have the connector. Of course, you won't be able to create anything at the end of the interview. You don't have a database in which you're going to create a customer request, but you can do everything else, generate the order form, test all that stuff out. So let's take a look. This screen, you'll notice it says, is hidden if the products have been loaded. So if you decide to run the interview with no products and not to use the data file that is provided, you'll have to create the products yourself. So this screen will let you create products according to our scenario where you have color, price, and then you have a bunch of functions. So these are the different products that the customer can choose from. Some of them will have different functionality. The customer will also have price requirements, so we're going to set a lower ceiling, and a floor and a ceiling for the pricing. And then the customer will select from those 4 attributes and say, this is what I want my camera to be able to do. So these are all standard Booleans. This is just a standard Boolean, but they are all used to identify which cameras represent the customer's functional requirements. So if the camera doesn't have a flash and the customer says they want a flash, clearly the product doesn't meet the customer's functional requirements. You'll notice that these rules are slightly more complex perhaps than some of the ones that we've seen before, because they require us to look through the 4 different concepts and say the product meets the customer's requirements if it has a flash and the customer, I'll start that again. If the customer wants a flash or doesn't need a flash and the product has a flash, then we're good. So it goes through each of those. Again, we have colors. You may recall that color was one of the attributes. So maybe the customer doesn't require a specific color, in which case we're okay. But if they do, and the customer said that they want it in black, well, the customer wants a black camera and this camera is in black, then we meet the customer's color requirements, and so on for all the different colors. Still looking back at our interview, there could be a case that we don't have anything to provide to the customer. Sorry, we don't have any products that meet your requirements. But the most likely is we hope that we have got some suitable products that meet your requirements. And you'll notice that the display of this is actually we're displaying a reference relationship. So we're displaying the products that meet the customer's needs. I beg your pardon. We're showing the products that that are part of this relationship, the customer's chosen products, and will only show products where the customer's needs are true. If you double click on this, you'll see that it's actually a piece of custom HTML. I'm not a great fan of this kind of thing because although in this case it does the job, it could be that a custom reference extension would do the job in a more robust way. And that's probably one of the extension possibilities that you have in this project, because this means also that we have a custom CSS file, and the custom CSS file isn't a styling extension, it's just a straight up CSS file to map to the styles that we just saw in here. So these styles here, these classes here. And then we have collecting the customer details, including collecting the customer phone numbers. You may recall that we just talked about the type of phone number. And finally, we show a read-only list of the products that the customer has requested. And at the end, you may choose to generate the order form. But let's go back to this reference relationship. Let's start up the project so we can see how this works. So we're into the project now, and it says product catalog data not loaded. If you're running this in the debugger, you can import the provided file, and indeed you can. We can go and find that file, which loads in a bunch of products. If I go to the Data tab and look at all instances of the product, you'll see that it now has loaded in these products from my data file, so my debugging file. Good. So this saves me having to write out all of this because each of them have colors, functionalities, and so forth. So now we can get on with the start. So let's just say that this is my minimum price and this is my maximum price. That'll do for now. And my customer wants to have flash and red eye reduction. Do they require a specific color? Yes, they do. They want it in black or they want it in green. And now we have the table of suitable products. Okay, so the products meet the requirements. They're in the price range, they have the functionality, and I can select one or more of them. And I can click Next. Let's go back to the Data tab, and now we'll see, okay, so we have all the instances of the product, which is every product in the list. If I go to the Global tab, a global object, we'll see that we have an input relationship, and you'll see that the customer's chosen products are the two products that I selected. That's because on that screen, if I go back to the suitable products, when I selected this, I was interacting with a relationship control. This is actually a relationship control. You can see it here. This is a relationship. So I was selecting the members of this relationship. I was selecting the customer's chosen products. And I'll carry on, and I'll say this is my name. Enter my email address. And I'll add my phone numbers. And this is my preferred number. So now I'm seeing the same thing that I saw earlier, the relationship control, only this time around it's in read-only. It's just confirming that those are the two that I selected. And I can go ahead and enter any comments. And it says thanks again. If I want to jump ahead for testing purposes, I can go to the order form and I can generate the order form. And here comes the order form. And here's my product inquiry record. You can see these are the products I selected, these are my comments, and this is my name, this is my preferred work. This is my preferred number. So, fair enough. So now we know where we are in the basic rollout of the project. We need to take a little bit more time to consider this concept of the products and this input relationship called the customer's chosen products. So you'll see here, the product is selected if, for scope, the customer who chose the product is member of the product, the customer's chosen products. So basically the product is selected if the product is a member of the customer's chosen products. And for scope, the customer who chose the product, if you're wondering where that came from, we go and have a look at our relationship. You'll see that this is the reverse relationship text. So we're saying that the customer has chosen products and the product, in a sense, has a customer. So this is the same relationship seen from both sides. If you're talking about the chosen products, it's a relationship between global and product. If you're talking about the customer of the product, it's the reverse, in a sense. You're saying this product has this customer. Now, obviously, I know that this is the global entity, but the global entity in this case represents a customer request. So you need to be comfortable with the idea that you will see reverse relationships from time to time expressing a relationship that you need to create, but in a reverse sense. And when we look at the products, this is where we'll find customer's chosen products and the customer who chose the product. Let's carry on. From a learning perspective, what does this mean? It means that this project, is a great opportunity to learn about relationships, how to collect them, how to display them, and also how to review them in the debugger, as well as how to leverage them with scoping functions like forScope and isMemberOf to find out whether a product belongs to a specific relationship. And there are some links in the article taking you to in-depth articles to discuss the concept of scope and to discuss, for example, isMemberOf. So this project is sort of mid-level, I'd say. It's a good opportunity for people who are familiar with the basics of Oracle Intelligent Advisor to get into the details of relationship manipulation and functions like scoping functions, which are often a bit of a bump in the road for some people when they discover them. So I hope you enjoy digging into the product recommendation. In the article, as I said, you'll find a bunch of links taking you to relevant articles to increase your knowledge. Have fun.